Welcome back to my story time with Nana. I have a whole new story for you. Happy Thanksgiving. It's a Thanksgiving story of love. I know you're going to enjoy it. I can't wait. Let's begin. Grandma Tales. Mrs. Scull and the Thanksgiving Feast. Penelope was so excited. They were going to spend Thanksgiving with the residents at the Gray Manor. When they got there, Mommy and Daddy went to work in the kitchen preparing dinner. Penelope helped set up the tables with the rest of the staff. Hey, did you bring any flowers today? A woman dressed as a pilgrim asked. I did. I like your costume, she answered. Well, if you're almost done here, we can go back to my room and I can pick you a cool costume too. My name is Mrs. Scull. She extended her hand. Penelope is my name, she said, shaking Mrs. Scull's hand. I'd like that. Let me just finish this table. When she finished, Penelope and Mrs. Scull walked back to her room. She had a room with two beds. On the bed closest to the door were scraps of fabric, feathers, beads, different colored pipe cleaners, and various other crafting items. Do you share a room? Penelope asked her. I do. I share this room with my sister, just like when we were girls. Have a seat on Anna's bed, and I'll tell you a story while I make you a costume. Anna? Do you mean Mrs. Coppola? Penelope asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. The one and only, she answered with a smile. I was born into her family when I was 14 years old. I say born because until then, I was no one, alone, waiting like a baby waits to meet my family for the very first time. And then the Coppolas came along and they adopted me, and I became a Coppola. It was overwhelming at times. They were loud and there were so many of them. I was like a baby trying to figure out who everyone was, where I fit in as the newest member of the Coppola family. We spent a lot of that summer down at the shore, and then school started. School was difficult because I was new and the other kids asked a lot of questions. Sometimes they were mean, saying I wasn't a real Coppola. But every time, and I mean every time, my brothers and my sister, they came to my aid and stood up for me. I really was their sister. We lived at 412 Hillside Avenue in Orange, New Jersey, in a big house. Well, it had to be big with so many children. Anna and I shared a room. Anna's side of the room was frilly and pink. I don't know how else to describe it. She was girly. My side was more subdued. Of course, Anna had her ideas of how I should make it look, but my mom had asked me what I wanted, and I told her something simple and green. Green was my favorite color. Every now and again, I would find a pink throw pillow thrown on my bed for decoration. After a while, I just let it stay there. It made Anna happy. My grandma and grandfather lived directly behind us. We could walk to their back door from our back door. Now, looking back, we were lucky to be so close to them. Anyway, I wanted to tell you about my first Thanksgiving as a Coppola. Really, my first Thanksgiving ever. Thanksgiving was just another day in the orphanage, so this was all new to me. The night before Thanksgiving, my mother ironed our dresses and the boys' dress shirts and pants. She wanted everyone to look their best. Anna's dress was pink, of course, and Mom had bought me a brand new green dress with little yellow flowers. It was very pretty. My brothers and sister were very excited for Thanksgiving. Everyone had a job, and we got to dress up. That night, as Anna and I prepared for bed, she told me that she would go over Grandma's house in the morning, and then we were going to help her make pies. She told me that I was going to love baking with Grandma. Now, I had never cooked or baked before, so I was a little nervous. But Anna explained that it would be more like a cooking class, and Grandma loved having students in her kitchen. I was going to learn how to make pie crust, and I was going to love it, she told me. Then she told me I was going to meet even more of our family. Now, I know you get nervous when there are a lot of people around, she told me that night, and I was nervous. I thought it was just going to be us, my family. But Anna explained that our aunts and uncles would be coming, as well as our cousins. She told me I was just going to love it. I wasn't sure I was just going to love it. I was just getting used to this family. And then she reminded me that these people were my family, and they were going to love me just as much as she loved me. Still, I was nervous. I fell asleep looking at mine and Anna's dresses hanging on the back of our closet door with butterflies in my belly. The next morning, Anna woke me up. She was so excited. She was throwing clothes at me, telling me that we had to get dressed and get over to Grandma's house to bake pies. I thought we were supposed to wear our dresses for Thanksgiving. She told me not to be silly. We would get dressed just before everyone got here because we didn't want to mess our dresses preparing the house and dinner. Mom was already in the kitchen when we came downstairs. The turkey was in the oven. Apparently, it took all day to cook a turkey. She shooed us out of the kitchen over to Grandma's. Anna and I walked over, and Grandma already had the flour on the cutting board. "Vinica," she called out, waving her hands to us. Oh, I don't think I mentioned that my grandma and my grandfather only spoke Italian. And thank goodness they used a lot of hand gestures. It gave you a kind of idea of what they were saying. Anna and I began preparing the dough for the pie crust. We mixed flour, butter, a pinch of salt, and sugar together, and then began adding cubes of butter and ice cold water. And soon we had pie dough. I was feeling pretty good about myself. Grandma showed me how to roll out the dough, and Anna put the sheets into the baking dishes. By the time we left, we had made 1 sweet potato pie, 2 apple pies, a coconut custard pie, and a vinegar pie. I know that last one doesn't sound like it would be good, but it is my favorite pie, even now. Anyhow, we baked most of the morning, and Anna was right. It was so much fun baking with Grandma. When we got back home, Dad and my brothers were setting up the dining room. Wait, it was really the dining room and part of the living room. They had 4 tables pushed together and every chair set up around the tables. There weren't enough chairs, I thought. But then Bobby, Artie, Bill, Stanley brought in planks of wood, and Dad and Joey set them up on the chairs. They looked like benches around the table. Once everything was put together, Anna and I began setting the tables. Mom had special tablecloths and napkins for Thanksgiving. And Grandma came over with her dishes and silverware because we didn't have enough for all the place settings. And then she went into the kitchen to supervise Dad while he made the lasagna for dinner. Grandma wanted to make sure everything he did was right. They spoke in Italian, so I wasn't sure if everything he was doing was right or not. But then she gave him a big hug and a kiss. "Bellissimo," she said. Mom was getting all the sides prepared. There was stuffing, traditional and meat stuffing, mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, green beans with little white onions, lima beans, cranberry sauce, and a salad. I had never seen so much food for one meal. When we finished setting the tables, Anna and I went upstairs to dress for dinner. Anna fixed my hair and gave me one of her green hair ribbons to match my dress. I don't think I ever looked so pretty. When we were all dressed, Mom had my brothers and sister and I stand in line for inspection. She fixed a tie or collar on 1 or 2 of the boys, and then she stood before me. "You look perfect," she said. I remembered that Anna smiled. Before we went downstairs, Anna held my hands in hers, and she told me that she was going to take care of me. Imagine that. I was her older sister, and she was going to take care of me. She promised to never leave my side, and if I started feeling nervous because of all the people, to just take her hand and she would give it a squeeze to let me know that everything was all right. She was so sweet. When everyone began to arrive, I was a little nervous. I was meeting so many people. Uncle Arthur and Aunt Lucy and their children, Uncle Dick and Aunt Irene and their children, Uncle Lou and Aunt Ann and their children, Uncle Sonny, Uncle Bill and Aunt Claire and their children, Aunt Honey and Uncle Alex, Aunt Angelina. I mean, there were a lot of people. They all brought wine and more food. Anna held my hand the whole time. Everyone was so nice to me. I had a great big family. We sat at the table close together because there were so many people. My father at the head of the table, my mother to his left, and my grandmother to his right. And he took their hands, and then we all held hands around the table, and my father said grace. In Italian, of course. I felt so loved being a part of this big family. My father brought out the lasagna as the first course. And after lasagna, Mom, Anna, and I cleaned those dishes off the table and carried out the Thanksgiving dinner. Everything was wonderful. It was the best food. Now, I have to tell you at this point, I'm not a fan of lima beans, but we did have to eat a little bit of everything, per my father. I looked over at Anna and she made a face as she pushed her lima beans on the plate. And then she looked over at me and smiled. She started pushing her lima beans into her sweet potato skin. I followed her lead and did the same. It was probably bad that we did that, but we did it together. And sharing things with your sister is always a good thing. Once everyone had their fill of dinner, Mom brought out the salad. It's an Italian tradition, salad after the meal. But that was not the end of the Thanksgiving meal. After we cleaned up from dinner, Mom made coffee and espresso and brought out pies and all the desserts my aunts had brought. And we all had coffee, even the children. And my father put a little splash of anisette in our cups. It was the most amazing day. All the food, all the company, all the love in that house. My family at Thanksgiving. I often wonder if the people living in that house today know how many wonderful family memories are tucked inside. Oh, Mrs. Scull, that was wonderful. That's a wonderful Thanksgiving story. Thank you so much for sharing it with me. What color flower would you like? Penelope asked her. I think I'd like the pink one. It will remind me of the dress my sister wore that Thanksgiving, my first Thanksgiving, and how she stayed by my side. Mrs. Scull gave Penelope a headdress of feathers she had made while telling her story. You know, since the Indians shared their food with the Pilgrims, it's only fitting that you be an Indian today. I know we are sharing our stories, but you are sharing your ears and your heart just by listening. Well, I love hearing them, Mrs. Scull, Penelope answered. I know, but you have no idea how much we love sharing our favorite memories, she said, hugging Penelope tight. It just takes us back to the good old days. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. Woo! Made it. I hope you enjoyed that story tonight. I enjoyed it. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Don't forget to share my stories and come back next week. I have a whole new story for you. Mwah.